Today, I would like to introduce you to Dscope. Dscope is fundamentally a visual deadline tracking app on the web. You can think of it as radar for your deadlines. So, the first thing to understand about Dscope is that it allows you to organize the diverse range of deadlines that you have into different categories. Now, this, of course, will depend on your particular situation, your workflow. So, for example, you may have a very client centric set of deadlines, or you may have a project centric set of deadlines, or a team member centered set of deadlines, or a mix of all three. So, to start out with one example, which has a sort of a mix of those types of deadlines and therefore categories with those types of deadlines, we can look at this. So, in this visualization, essentially time is represented as distance from the middle of the visualization. So, today is dead center here. Now, one of the powerful features of Dscope is that you can look at your deadlines across various time ranges. So right now, we are set for the 1 month visualization. So everything on this radar is 1 month. And these concentric circles are just markers of various time ranges within that 1 month and effectively at 1 week or 7 day intervals, as you can see. And these are labeled so you can see, of course, immediately. Now, along each one of these axes, you have a different set of deadlines associated with a particular category. So, for example, client A here, and this axis lights up when we hover over that, shows you these markers at different points along that axis and therefore different distances or time distances, so to speak. Now, when we hover over each deadline, it will give the exact title of that deadline, the number of days until that deadline, the specific date of the week, and if there are any extra notes, you can see those as well. So, for example, here is submit first draft. And if I want to zoom in on more detail about that deadline, I just click on that deadline and I can change different aspects of that deadline. We can get a description of the deadline, we can change the title of the deadline, we can change the date of that deadline, and we can also, very importantly, change the status and an associated color of that status. And we're going to cover that just a moment here. So, first of all these categories are completely customizable. And in this category legend is where we first add all our categories. So you'll have a whole range of categories here, and you can delete any category, you can add categories, and you can hide this when you don't need to see it. And as I just mentioned here, there's also statuses of each deadline. And this is very powerful because essentially at a glance, I can get information about this particular deadline. So for example, this deadline here in the category of HR, I see as red. That tells me based on this status legend or status that I've defined, that is a non-extendable deadline. So immediately I know I should focus that. I can't extend it. I can't change the date on that. As opposed to maybe this deadline, which is in green, which again, based on my status legend, I know is on track. And again, these statuses are completely customizable. They're set by the user, and you can tailor make them to statuses that make sense for you. So these might correspond to actually people in a team. So it might be a color that corresponds to assistant or someone who has to sign up or sign off on a particular project, whatever you like. But the point is, I can now look and within each one of these categories, quickly assess what needs to get prioritized and how long do I have from that actual deadline. And I can quickly flow between time ranges. So I can go starting from 1 week. And you'll notice there are fewer categories here. And that's simply because the closer in I get, the fewer the number of categories will actually have deadlines. And conversely, as I go to longer time scales, I will actually have a greater number of categories, which automatically expands. And as I get further and further out, there will tend to be more categories. Again, that can vary depending on the situation. But the point is, I can quickly zoom in to different time ranges. What's also nice is I can also get lists of any particular visualization. So I can get the title of those deadlines. I can see what the status of those deadlines is, of course, the category. If I want to go in and change something, I can go ahead and do that. So it's a very flexible visualization platform. But the nice thing here is that you can quickly at a glance get really the big picture of your deadlines at different time scales. So now we're going to go into how one actually sets up deadlines and categories in Dscope. When we first start in Dscope, we use what are known as workspaces. Now, what's great about Dscope, or one of the great features, is that you can have multiple workspaces, meaning you can have a set of deadlines that's one type of work set of deadlines. You can have personal sets of deadlines. You can have a whole range of deadlines, and they just get added to a whole set. So right now we've created, by adding a new workspace, a workspace entitled My Project Portfolio. And I haven't added any deadlines. I haven't defined any categories at all. So the very first thing I would want to do is to add categories. So for example, because this is a project centered set of deadlines, I will call this project A, add. So now I have project A on that list. I can add project B, and so forth until I have the list of projects. So now I've defined all my categories, about 16 of them. The next step is to define statuses. So I would come over here. So I don't need the category legend anymore. So let's hide that for now. Now in the status legend, there are no statuses defined yet. Again, these are completely customized. So I'm going to start with an urgent status type. And I can go into this color controller and set it to any color that I like. So red for urgent. And if I want to give a fuller description of that status, I can do so here. But the basic title of the status and the associated color is set here. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And I will now add in some additional statuses, again, to reflect the types of status I work with, which will be user dependent. The type of deadline will also dictate what types of status will make sense. So I have now defined all the various statuses that are relevant to my deadlines. And remember that you can always add more statuses. You can delete the statuses, and of course you can edit any status, including changing the name or the color, which will be automatically updated throughout the whole visualization. So you may have noticed that I had urgent originally. I changed this to non-extendable. Again, you can do this easily just by using a little pencil here to edit. So now I'm ready to add my first deadline. So to do that, I hit add deadline, and then I select one of my categories from this pull down menu. So let's say I have a grant deadline, and we'll call this the Bio Rejuvenation Fund. grant deadline. And you can add more text to give a fuller description. You can add notes. And let's say that's on 16th of July this year. And it is a non-extendable deadline. It has to be submitted. So from this panel, which shows us all of the different statuses and the associated colors, we select non-extendable. Now, a really useful feature of Dscope is you can actually add related tasks, which enables you to add a series of deadlines, one or more deadlines, that are somehow connected to a given deadline. So, for example, you may imagine that for the Biorejuvenation Fund grant, you're going to have some intermediate tasks. So let's just say I have Biorejuvenation Fund grant review, and I want that a month ahead. Yep. And this is an extendable deadline. And I can go ahead and add, and this will save both deadlines now. So if I were to look at 1 week, obviously I wouldn't see either one of these. If I go to 1 month, I'll see the Biorejuvenation Fund grant review, which falls just within that 30-day period starting from today. If I go to 3 months, I'll see both. Now, again, what's nice here is that these deadlines are connected to each other, and I can see that right away. When I click on the deadline, I can see that, there's a grant review on June 16th. And if I were to click here, that will take me directly to that deadline. And the connection is reciprocal. So I'll see that, there's an actual grant deadline on July 16th. So that is the basic protocol or setup to add a deadline. So after we continue to add deadlines, we've populated Dscope. So again, to my point earlier, with shorter time ranges like 1 week, you'll obviously have fewer categories with deadlines. So we just have 4 here, and we can see that they have different statuses. We know that these are non-extendable just because they're red. The purple tells us that that's in progress. And again, you can check your statuses at any time, the status legend, to remind yourself. Although after you've been using them for a while, you'll know instantly which status these colors refer to. So for example, for this one from memory, I think that was with one of the people. I think it was, yes, with John, for example. Or sorry, that's under review by the CEO. Don't get your colors mixed up. And as you can see, as you go on, there's more categories with deadlines. And again, you can check on any given one of these by clicking. And you can jump between time ranges. You can go out to 3 months, go to 1 year. So you have really a great view of what's going on in all your different categories, all your different types of deadlines. And it really gives you a good sense of control and the ability to prioritize very quickly, without having to have very long lists as you do in Excel or in Outlook. You can also get a quick view if you want a calendar view, just a regular calendar view. Any of these deadlines are also listed in the calendar. But again, the whole advantage is that you can jump, especially with time scales longer than a month. You can really see what's coming. So, and these obviously are moving every day. They're getting updated and closer, just like you would with airplanes, with air traffic control, except these are your deadlines moving in time.